Hi, this is Barry Fitzgerald, and I'll see you in the shadows.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Welcome to another Monday night here on the Shadows Radio. I am Rebecca. And
I'm Cece.
Yes. I say you've been on the show enough, you don't have to wait for me to tell people who you are.
That's true.
Who are you?
I'm Cece.
Okay. Sorry, I talked over you the first time. I wanted to make sure you could say that. So, yes, once again, I have the lovely and beautiful and charming Cece from the chat room in as my co-host because Kara's still missing. I've upped the reward.
Have we
$6.
paid off the alien ransom yet?
$6 I have the reward up to if anybody finds her. Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. You know, my Curse of King Tut conversation was a lot of fun. So we kind of are going on that vibe now. So.
Yay!
That's where we're going tonight, is another curse, which I always thought was fun. But before we do that, I just want to say that today is actually Mark Davis, who is the original co-host with me of The Shadows. It's his birthday. If you're not familiar, he passed away this past October. So, you know, my thoughts and prayers and whatevers have been with his family kind of all day because, you know, the first one after somebody passes is always the hardest.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Everybody wish him a happy birthday wherever he is. I'm hoping he's, you know, not haunting me, just smiling down from somewhere nice and cozy. And he's not like, you know, sending me EVPs because we always had that conversation. Whoever goes first.
He's not showing you, sending you show notes either. So
he always sends me notes. Sometimes I have dreams that he's like yelling at me for things because I'll be honest with you, once he left the show, like there was a couple of things that he and I had talked about before we even started the show. We sat down, we said, okay, this is kind of what we want the show to be about. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of things that he flat out said, I don't want to do this. There's a couple of things that I flat out said, I don't want to do this. And we said, okay, that's great. And so we made all those little check boxes. So then, you know, we did our shows together and everybody was happy. And then when he left, I was like, not sweet, he's gone, but kind of like, I get to set the schedule. So a couple of those things that he said I wasn't allowed to do, I've done over the years. I'm saying over the years, not, you know, every day, but, you know, kind of spread out here and there. I've done one or two things that he would have kind of given me that look of like, Rebecca.
May we ask what those were?
No, you may not, because I don't want to offend any guests.
Okay.
But essentially it just came down to after those shows aired, I would have a dream about him yelling at me. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is not one of those shows, though. This is one he probably would have got behind. So, anyway, happy birthday, Mark. You know, whichever cloud you're sitting on. Hopefully it's a big fluffy one.
Yeah.
With lots of gin. He was a big gin drinker. Not a big gin drinker. That makes him sound like a lush, but that was his drink of choice. How's that?
Okay.
That sounds less terrible.
Yes.
Hey, you big lot. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. What the heck did I just do? Don't hit that button. It makes weird things happen.
Okay.
All right. So tonight we are going to talk about the Scottish play.
Yes.
You got to cue the music. Dun, dun. Like that. Yeah. So if you're not familiar, the Scottish play is actually about the play Macbeth, which was written by William Shakespeare. Macbeth was written in 1605, 1606, depending on kind of which source you look at. Obviously attributed to William Shakespeare during the reign of King James I in England. It's a 5-act, 21-scene play with 17,121 words in total, which is actually one of the shortest. Well, it's actually one of the shortest plays that Shakespeare ever wrote.
Short act, yeah. Really, yes, small acts. Not like Hamlet, which is 5 acts, 7 hours and 12 minutes.
So Macbeth, when put on end to end, is actually about half the length of a running time of Hamlet.
Wow.
Yeah. But the 5 acts, 21 scenes, et cetera, compared to a modern play is actually fairly long.
Yeah.
Most plays now have 2, possibly 3 acts. Generally, sometimes 4, depending on, how far they go, and they don't have that many scenes in them. But
if you're really on the guard but mostly they're 2-act plays now.
Yeah, they're 2 to 3, depending on, kind of what genre too. Musicals are definitely 2. There's, the initial with the big crescendo, and then there's the repeat of the initial with the big crescendo, and then everybody's happy at the end. That's a musical. Sometimes dramatic plays will have a third act to them, just to kind of spice it up, I guess.
Right.
But anyway, so it's a 17,121 words in total, 21 scenes, 5 acts, and half the running time of Hamlet. And actually, this was considered a fairly short play during the time. And there's actually a character of Hecate, depending on
Hecate.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to. Yeah. That character was possibly added later by a second author, not by Shakespeare himself, because of the short play length that people were complaining they were not getting their money's worth. Mm-hmm. So it's possible that character and that whole section of the play was not actually written by Shakespeare. And who it's actually written by is very much up for debate. If you want to dig into that, you can fall into a rabbit hole of many, many, many scholarly papers.
Well, if we get into conspiracy theory that Shakespeare plays weren't written by William Shakespeare, but we won't go there.
I started writing that, and then I stopped, and I was like, nope. We're just going to assume that Shakespeare is Shakespeare, and he wrote the things like they said. Period. Okay. We're going to leave Kit Marlowe way over there.
Okay.
All right. So Shakespeare himself claimed to have written the play in honor of King James I's Scottish heritage, because James I was actually the son of Mary, Queen of Scots. So he was the first Scottish. He was the heir to the Scottish throne, and then he became the heir to Elizabeth I. So when she passed, James actually then had the Scottish and the English throne, and was one of the first to hold both thrones, I believe. So sometimes his Scottish side gets lost in all of this, but yes, he actually was born and raised in Scotland.
Yes.
The son of the Scottish queen. So anyway, so Shakespeare claimed to write the play in honor of James' Scottish heritage, but he also, in his personal life, had a very unique interest in the demonic and an intense fear of sorcery. He himself being James the First, even wrote books on demonology that were used as tools for finding witches up until the 17th century in England.
Yeah, he wrote a book called The Demonologist.
Yeah, which is amazing for a king to put that kind of thing on paper.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're the king, no one's going to tell you not to.
You're king, you can pretty much do what you want.
Yeah. So because of this, Shakespeare actually was said to have researched the Weird Sisters, who, if you're not familiar, those are the 3 witches that are in the play. Fairly in depth. He spoke to Wiccans, he spoke to pagans, he spoke to many people across the spectrum. And supposedly the chants in Macbeth that they do, plus the ingredients of fenny snake, eye of newt, and toe of frog, are supposedly aspects of real spells that Shakespeare actually used. And part of that is going to come back and play when we talk about the curse. But
yeah.
So the 3 witches, like I said, they're called the Weird Sisters, are known throughout the play. Shakespeare really didn't actually mean weird as in the word of strange. So it comes weird. It's from the Anglo-Saxon word wired, which is W-Y-R-D, which means fate or destiny. So he was calling them weird in the respect that they could tell the future, and that they were kind of the prophesizers. They were the fortune tellers. They were the fortune tellers and the music makers. No, sorry.
They were kind of also the Greek chorus of the whole thing.
They kind of, yeah, they were a little bit of the plot pushers. Like, look, exposition. Yeah. That's always my favorite part.
Yeah, part of the play where you go, move along.
Yeah, time jump. Yeah, those are my favorite. So in the play, Macbeth returns from a battlefield only to encounter the three witches who make a trio of prophecies. One indicates Macbeth will be the next king. Sorry, one of those prophecies indicates that Macbeth will be the next king. Sorry. Macbeth's wife, in an effort to speed up the inevitable, encourages him to murder the current king. In which Macbeth does so and then loses sleep and becomes extremely paranoid.
And oddly enough, that king's name was Duncan.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. Yes, that king's name was Duncan.
Dun,
dun, dun.
Not a relative.
No, not so much.
That I'm aware of. Yeah.
We should check. Maybe he also makes donuts.
I should.
Because yes, actually the everybody in the Macbeth story is actually based on a real personage.
Yes.
So I mean, there was a King Duncan. Yeah. So and a King Macbeth. So you should go back and trace and see. Maybe you are royalty.
Maybe. Oh, that would be fun.
All right. So Macbeth murders Duncan, but then he starts losing sleep, becomes super paranoid about everything. This is when he starts, seeing ghosts and things. He murders his best friend, whose children were actually prophesied to take the throne in the future. So he thinks taking out his friend is gonna, stop the children from seeking vengeance or something. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly, but were the children already born when he takes out the friend?
Yes.
Okay, so really, he should have taken out the kids. Not that I'm,
not
that I'm suggesting that anyone killed the children of their friend, but maybe that would have been better. But anyway. For good measure, Macbeth also turns around and murders an entire family that poses competition to him. Meanwhile, his wife becomes racked with extreme guilt, and she dies. And then before long, Macbeth is unseated from the throne by force, and he also dies. So there's a whole lot of death, a whole lot of violence, and one of my favorite lines, which is the out, damn spot. Yes. Which is one of my favorite lines in all of a play, just to sit there. I used to work props in a theater, and one of my favorite things is just sit there, out, damn spot! And I would, point to the door, and people just stare at me. I'm like, what? Like, what do you want?
So you've been quoting that Scottish play, too? I
have, but I was never in the theater. I was always in the prop room, which is not technically part of the theater. I never did it on stage because I probably would have been skinned and, hung by my toes.
Yeah.
But yeah. So also, Shakespeare's Macbeth holds the record for being the most performed of any of Shakespeare's works, which I think is kind of interesting because, there's... I feel like of all his plays, there are better ones. There are definitely more popular ones. Romeo and Juliet tends to be his most popular.
Mm-hmm.
I like The Tempest. That's one of my favorites. Yeah. But again...
Much Ado About Nothing usually gets put on.
Yeah, but somehow, I guess Macbeth seems to win. I guess because it is so dramatic and so... visually striking when you talk about the body count and the gore and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So
it's pretty violent.
It is, yeah. All right, so let's talk about the curse.
Okay.
So, according to folklore, the play Macbeth was cursed from day one. There was a coven of witches that objected to Shakespeare using real incomplete incantations during certain scenes of the play, so they supposedly put a curse on the production. That's the kind of the main story. There is kind of an alternate story that I saw that said the original prop master for the first production couldn't find a prop cauldron, so he stole one from the local witches' coven, who then proceeded to curse the production. Knowing many prop masters in my life, I don't necessarily think this is unbelievable. They have lifted things for many things. But no, I think it's probably, if there is any curse on the play, I think it probably started with the whole incantation thing. And it was either Shakespeare used real incantations but didn't use them properly or correctly, or he made up complete gibberish and they got offended by that. That I could see either way happening.
Yeah.
Some of those who believe in the reality of the spells of the play also believe that real witches should have been chosen to act the roles. And it's a failure to do this that actually triggered the curse itself. So again,
except that at the time, these plays were going on, women were not allowed on stage.
It was actually the very beginning of women being allowed on stage, but they were just very few and far between. Very far between. Yeah. But I mean, there were male witches.
True, but
they could have got a male witch to do it.
Got a point.
So, yeah, so those are kind of like the three kind of the main, like, how the curse got started situations. And then there's also the idea. So we talked about Hecate, or how did you pronounce it?
Hecate.
Hecate. Like I said.
Or Hecate. I mean,
Hecate. Yeah, you mean, there's
Hecate,
no real, it's Hecate if you're not familiar with that name. Now I'm completely blanking on who she actually is.
Hecate? Hecate, she,
see?
Underworld?
Yeah, so she's the goddess of the underworld, yeah. Okay. I knew it was something, she's a goddess of something really dark and nasty. But, so anyway, we talked originally about her not being part of the original play, and that's kind of where this ties into, is that some people believe that including that character and those extra scenes actually will actually intensify the curse for your specific production. Because number one, there's a question about the authorship of that part. It's not original to the play. It's kind of tacked on afterwards. And then, obviously it's cut just because sometimes it's pretty dark stuff. So anyway, it is known for sure, just to clarify that piece, there is actually proof that the original version of Macbeth, written by Shakespeare by hand, does not have that character and that section of it in there. But there is no proof as to when it actually got added in and by whom. So that's kind of where that whole question pops in.
There was a reference to this that said that witches were very popular for dramas in the 1600s. There was a play by Thomas Middleton called The Witch, and he actually borrowed passages from The Discovery of Witchcraft, and that's a book reportedly with actual magic spells used by real witches. And none of those were ever cursed, so to speak.
So you think. Dun, dun, dun. Sorry. All right.
Well, of course, nobody's ever heard of the play, which is kind of a curse in itself, right?
Well, yeah, I guess if you're going to put a curse on a play, you should pick the one that's probably going to be a little popular. Like, let's not curse that guy over there. Let's curse the celebrity over there. Like, why would you do that? I don't know. Maybe that's why.
It's true. But if you want your play to be popular, you don't curse the witches.
Yeah. Sometimes people like doing this play specifically because they want to tempt the curse.
Oh.
Like, I knew a couple people in high school that actually petitioned to put this play on in high school specifically because they wanted to tempt the curse. They wanted to see if it was a thing.
Oh, they wanted to stand on stage and quote, or they just wanted... Ooh.
But the curse is actually negated if you're actually in rehearsal for the actual play. Like... It negates the curse, like all the aspects of the It doesn't count. Okay, so let's talk about the actual curse itself. So I'm going to run down a timeline. So remember that this play was published in 1605 or 1606, depending on your source. So in 1606 at the Globe Theatre, which is Shakespeare's home theater, that was the play's first performance. The actor playing Lady Macbeth, known as Hal Berridge, was stricken with fever and died suddenly, and Shakespeare ended up having to play Lady Macbeth on opening night. So, I mean, that was victim number one. One. Sorry. That was my dramatic echo chamber. No, it didn't work? Okay.
No.
Damn it. All right. All right. So, yeah. So Hal Berridge was the first victim of the curse. But keep in mind that in the early 1600s, health and sanitation was not always the strongest. So people getting a fever and dying suddenly was not all that uncommon.
Yeah, the plague.
If you lasted to 40, you were impressive. But just saying. All right, so 1672 in Amsterdam, the actor playing Macbeth used a real dagger and ended up committing murder on stage. And I found a couple different versions of the story. One said he killed Duncan for real. One said that he killed Lady Macbeth for real, and one said he ended up killing himself, but I'm pretty sure he did not. I think it was just like a generic soldier, like just an extra during one of the battle scenes. Yeah, that he ended up stabbing. So now, honestly, I can see how this would happen. Not necessarily that it was premeditated murder, but I've done enough prop work in my life to know how when the plastic one that has the spring that hides the blade gets mixed up with the real one, sometimes things happen. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I actually had a very similar incident in a show that I was doing where we actually switched out. There was a blood that there was a blood that squirted out a knife. No, there was a knife that squirted out blood that we had ordered,
Right.
and it didn't get there in time for rehearsals. And so we had swapped it out like opening night or something, and the actors had a total fit. They were like, "This is a real blade. It's gonna cause blood." I'm like, "No, it's similar to what you had already been using, but no." But anyway, so I could see how they could accidentally swap the blades and somebody could get.
Sure.
That's a totally viable thing there.
In those days, they didn't really have dull-bladed knives. Wasn't much point to it.
Ha! I get it. That was punny. All right. In 1703, the play opened in London, and England is hit with one of the most violent storms in its weather history. So I don't know if you want to count that, but apparently during a performance, the weather did not agree with them. Do you like my abbreviated versions of these?
That's, yeah.
I mean, that could be a coincidence.
Storms come up.
But, But the most
But then, of
violent
course,
storm in
didn't
history,
the witches create a violent storm?
They did. That's what I say. It's one of the most violent storms in history, though. So it's not just a storm. I mean, storms happen all the time. But the most violent storm in history? So in 1721, a nobleman who was choosing to watch the show from the stage decided to get up in the middle of the scene, walk across the stage, and talk to a friend, thereby interrupting the show. The actors who were upset by this drew their swords and drove the nobleman and his friend from the theater. Unfortunately for them, the nobleman then returned with the militia and burned the theater down. I don't know if your friend is a jerk. Really applies to the curse.
Yeah.
But I kept this one on just because it was fun. Not that people, burn the theater down, but like, how do you just get up in the middle of the show and just like, I'm going to go talk to Jerry? Like, what are you doing? No, I'm going to go talk to Jerry.
I guess it's the equivalent of a cell phone call in the middle of the show.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
So in 1775, the actress playing Lady Macbeth, Sarah Siddon, Siddon, narrowly escaped being assaulted by the audience when they did not approve of her performance. And I actually read the newspaper clipping about this. It's not kind.
Wow.
They actually, I tried to find it again, and basically what the clipping says is that Miss Siddon's performance was dry like sucking on the log of a dead tree.
Ew.
Like, what? Like, first off, who thinks that is a good analogy? I was like, okay. But apparently the audience was so displeased by her performance that they not only, threw stuff at the stage during the show, but they bum rushed the stage.
Wow.
And 17 people were actually arrested on that one.
That's taking it just a little too seriously.
I mean, I've not cared for performances before. There's been certain times I'm like, this kind of sucks. This guy's not, he's clearly not into it. I don't know if I've ever been inclined to get up and bum rush the stage, though.
No, I never have.
Different time, I guess. All right, in 1849, there was another riot. So right now, this is our third riot in a row. This one actually has a name, too. It's called the Astor Place Riot. So the story behind this one's a little long, so bear with me. So American Edwin Forrest and English actor William Charles had kind of a running rivalry between them. And they had kind of, for years, been back and forth about who was the better one. They were always up for the same kind of parts. And both William Charles Macready. I don't know why I just said William Charles. William Charles Macready and Forrest were actually playing Macbeth at the same time in New York City. A crowd of more than 10,000 New Yorkers gathered to protest the appearance of British actor William Charles Macready, and glass and bottle-armed fans of Edwin Forrest descended on Astor Place, which is where Macready was performing his version of Macbeth. The protest escalated into a riot, leading the militia to fire into the crowd, and 22 or 23 people died, including some people who just happened to be walking past the theater at the time. which is kind of terrible. There were over 100 people reported injured as well in this kind of riot. And Macready fled, never to return to America again.
Wow.
I laugh because there's actually a Forrest Theater here in Philadelphia that was founded by Edwin Forrest. And I kind of want to ask them, like, guys, did you know about this? But apparently that was, I mean, I guess it's the equivalent of, like, you know, I think about the mid-'90s with the boy band revolutions where you had, like, you know, the Backstreet Boys and the NSYNC fans and the
Sure.
Never the Two Shall Cross. Because,
well, you know, it happened with stage magicians a lot where, you know, you had your favorite one and everybody else was a rival and you booed them or tried to run them out of town. So.
Once again, I would never think to, like, you know, chuck bottles at people and end up getting shot. Could you imagine saying, oh, I'm sorry to hear about your relative. How did they die? Oh, I don't know. They were in a riot about some guy playing Macbeth. Like, okay. And that guy was so freaked out, he left and never came back to America again. Like, that's bad. You ran that guy out of town.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But again, 1849, so.
Well, April of 1865. Do you know what happened that year? In that time?
Abraham Lincoln.
He did. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. But the reason that's relevant to the story is because Abraham Lincoln actually took a copy of Macbeth with him on the River Queen, which is a boat on the Potomac River. And he's said to have been reading passages aloud during the voyage, including Duncan's assassination. And then a week later, Lincoln himself was assassinated in a theater. So you might call this one coincidence. I don't know. I kind of feel like it fits.
And oddly enough, I was reading in another news article that Macbeth was Lincoln's favorite play.
Yes.
Oddly enough.
Not sure why, but all right. But yeah, he was reading aloud. So what do you say? You're not supposed to quote it?
You don't quote it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That Scottish play.
Yeah. In 1882, on closing night of Macbeth, J.H. Barnes was engaged in swordplay during the final scene of the play, and he injured a fellow actor, William Ringgold. Fortunately for them, there was a doctor in the audience, and Ringgold was able to be saved. But otherwise, it would have been a fatal stab wound.
And you wonder why they had that announcement. Is there a doctor in the house?
Yeah. Well, I feel like the doctor would have noticed. Someone got fatally stabbed on stage. I think the doctor would be like, I got that. Like, don't worry, I'm here. So, I don't know. That one, again, kind of chalk it up to, like, statistically, it's going to happen at some point, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess, right?
It's extremely, like I said, this is an extremely violent play. I'm shocked more people haven't gotten injured in it.
Well, there are, I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I was creating this list, I went through, and the ones I could find, either multiple sources or actual newspaper clippings, those are the ones that I included. So there are probably another 50 or 60 that I cut out that were exactly like you said. It was kind of like, there was a play, and someone got stabbed, but there was, like, no information about it other than that. So, like, I tried to pick the ones that actually seemed like, okay, not only were they historically relevant, but they also had fact to back them up, you know?
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys are getting, you know, top-notch information rather than just me. Because I could have, if we just started ranting on all the people that died during the productions of Macbeth, we would be here for months.
Lots of cursed plays, but this one, yeah. It's mostly due to the skill sets of the actors, I think.
Yeah. All right, so in 1926, Sybil Thorndike was actually almost strangled by a fellow actor on stage. That seems unfortunate.
And rather odd.
Yes, because I'm trying to remember. I don't remember there being any strangulations in the play.
There weren't.
Lots of stabbies. A couple of off-screen decapitations.
But mostly it's stabbies.
Yeah.
I don't recall any strangulations in the play at all.
Well, that would then be part of the curse. Someone got confused. They had the wrong script. All right. So in 1928, during the first modern dress production at the Royal Court Theatre in London. So modern dress means that the characters, instead of being dressed for the time that the play is actually set in. They are dressed for the period in which the play is being presented. So in this case, they would have been dressed like they were from 1928.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify that. Some people don't know. But a large set piece at the Royal Court Theatre in London actually fell, injuring several members of the cast severely, and then a fire broke out.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Because at that point, they were still using gaslights.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gaslight catches on fire. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Also, your fire door should always swing outward. Just a note. For anybody building a theater, never bring your fire doors in. There are so many fires in theaters that happened because the fire doors, for whatever reason, swung in.
It's odd.
Weirdos. All right.
Continue.
So, in the 1930s, actress Lillian Boylis. I'm just gonna have fun with these names. Boylis died on the day of final dress rehearsal while playing Lady Macbeth. Later, Boylis's portrait fell when the theater tried to put the play on again sometime later. I guess her ghost was not super thrilled about that. But I wonder, did the original production go on? Or did they just...
I would assume so. I mean, almost even in the 30s, they had understudies.
So why would it wait? Why would the spirit of Boylis wait to knock the portrait over until after, like the next time they put the play on? Like, why wouldn't he try and take out the production that took her out?
Good question. I don't know. But they still had understudies, so maybe it was a short run.
Or she didn't get her ghost training in time. Like, quick, I got to hurry through Paranormal 101 so that I can get back to the theater. Aw, man. Dang it.
Class 1, How to Haunt the Living.
How to knock your portrait off the wall. I just need the Cliff Notes. Come on. I gotta get back.
Cliff Note Poltergeist, yeah.
All right, in 1934, 4 different actors had to play Macbeth for a single production in a single week due to illness. So this is apparently pretty rampant going through the crowd. That one there. And also in 1934, Malcolm Keane suddenly lost his voice on stage mid-performance, and his stand-in, Alastair Sim, developed a high fever and was hospitalized.
Is that Alastair Sim, the Scrooge guy?
Possibly. It's not Aleister Crowley, though, because I looked.
Wasn't Alastair Sim the original Scrooge?
I don't know, but Google will know.
I will look it up. Continue.
Yep, Alastair Sim was the original Ebenezer Scrooge, 1951. Good call. Look at you.
Gold star.
You get a cookie. I would offer you a donut, but you already ate one and didn't share. But yeah, I mean, that one to me strikes me a little more as curse. Like, your Macbeth literally voices out on stage, and then your backup has to go to the hospital. Like,
I don't recall 1934 as being a pandemic flu.
I don't know
either. So
yeah,
this is a good curse one.
All right, so far we're 1 for 20 something. All right, so the next one here is kind of interesting. I was amused by this one. I actually had to look it up, and you can find it on YouTube if you're interested. But in 1936, Orson Welles produced an all-black voodoo Macbeth set in Haiti in the 19th century. Part of the cast was an African drummers and a genuine witch doctor who was not happy that critic Percy Hammond gave the show a bad review. They supposedly set the curse on Hammond, and one of the African drummers created a voodoo doll of Hammond and stuck pins in it and hung it from his drum during the show. Hammond died a couple weeks later. The production was also protested by the Harlem communists who felt the black actors were being used as comedic fodder. And one protester slashed Wells with a razor. However, the Voodoo Macbeth defied all expectations and was a box office sensation.
Wow.
And they actually ended up making a motion picture out of it. So like you can actually like get the movie version.
Really?
The same cast, yeah. Like I said, you can find bits and pieces of it on YouTube, but I believe that the actual full movie was produced as a movie.
I shall have to look that one up.
But it was, it was. So every source I found on this one said it was a huge hit. People loved it, because it kind of took Macbeth into this whole new place. But then again, you've got this one critic who was very staunchly like Shakespeare should be Shakespeare. do not manipulate the bard. You know, that kind of guy.
Yeah. Purist.
So supposedly, the witch doctor gave him a curse, and the drummers then stuck a voodoo doll on their drum and killed him.
Awesome.
Yeah. 1937. Well, I'm sorry, guys.
I don't know about that one.
I just thought the entire concept was interesting. The voodoo Macbeth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like what Brandon's doing these days, but yeah, taking the original out of the period it was originally set in. So
Brandon is currently doing Harry Potter, so you know, there's that.
That is that. Yeah.
He's the height of pop culture right now. Okay, so 1930. Oh, I did that one. 1937. Laurence Olivier. I just like saying his name. Laurence Olivier was nearly crushed, by a 25-pound stage weight that fell from the scenery during rehearsal at the Old Vic Theatre. During the same performance, the director and actress playing Lady Macduff were involved in a car accident on the way to the theater, and the owner of the theater died of a heart attack on stage during a dress rehearsal. Now that, to me, is a whole lot of check boxes.
Yeah.
You got smashed by a stage weight, almost got hit by scenery. The director and the actress almost died in a car accident, and the owner did die. So I feel like that one was a problem.
1937 was a bad year.
Apparently.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's see. 1942, an actor playing Duncan and 3 actresses playing the Weird Sisters died during the production, in addition to the suicide of the costume and the set designer. And I did verify the costume and the set designer were 2 different people. So This is a total of 4 actors or actresses and 2 production people died. 2 by suicide and 4 by unknown causes.
Where was this?
1 production. I didn't write that down.
Okay.
Because I'm a bad researcher. I will go through my source notes and I will tell you later.
Okay.
Just know that it happened. Sorry. I owe you a cookie again. In 1947, an actor called Harold Norman was stabbed by a sword during the play's ending fight scene. Seems really familiar to the other one. He died as a result of his wounds, however. And his ghost is actually said to haunt the Coliseum Theater in Oldham, supposedly on the Thursdays, which is the day that he died. So he only shows up on Thursday. But again, it's that last scene, man. That last scene is pretty violent. So
yeah, like I said, it's an extremely violent play, and you could just see the stabbings going on. I have no doubt that a lot of people were scratched, probably to the point of serious injury. But
I guess this time when they said there was a doctor in the house, there was no doctor that day.
Yeah.
But if they needed a dentist, there was a guy in the back who could fix your molars. All right. 1947, Orson Welles produced a screen version that bombed terribly, even failing to recoup its budget, let alone make a profit. This is not the voodoo version that I was telling you about. This is a different version. So I guess they call this one part of the curse because he had done a successful one before, and then he did a less successful version.
Yeah.
1948, Diana Wynard was playing Lady Macbeth. During a sleepwalking scene, she chose to do the action with her eyes closed. She walked right off the end of the stage, falling 15 feet into the orchestra pit in front of a full house of people. However, she was able to get up and finish the show. I cannot help but giggle when I read this one because, she fell off the stage. I feel like that's every Looney Tunes cartoon come to life ever.
Let's chalk this one up to method acting.
Yes. Don't ever do sleepwalking scenes with your eyes completely closed. Maybe we just pinch one a little bit. 1953, Charlton Heston was starring in an open-air production in Bermuda. Wind blew through the theater, causing flames from the stage lights to shoot out into the audience, causing the audience to run out of the theater. Heston himself was burned severely in the legs because his tights had been soaked in kerosene. Now, my question is, why the bleep were his tights soaked in kerosene?
I have no idea.
I read this one and I checked it, and there are legitimate newspaper articles about it, and it shows up on multiple sources and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, why? Why?
I can't even think of any
costuming So
things you would do with kerosene.
Originally, I was like, oh, well, maybe when the wind blew, the kerosene spilled or something. But no, it claims that he was just standing there, and then when the wind blew, the flame torches shot out like, a bad horror movie, and he just got caught in the crossfire. It's like, holy cow. That had to be terrifying, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd you go? I got burned by my tights.
Because I have no idea what kerosene would be doing in the tights.
I'm just going to go with it probably was in the stage lamps and he spilled it or something. And I'm going to go with that because it's the only thing in my head that makes sense.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, so 1955, Laurence Olivier again was performing as Macbeth. And during a production at Stratford, and he actually almost blinded his fellow actor Keith Michell. No T in there. It's not Mitchell. It's Michelle or Michelle. That would have to be scary too. You almost got blinded. During the 1960s, there was a production in St. Paul, Minnesota, where the actor playing Macbeth dropped dead of a heart failure during the opening scene of Act 3. Also, kind of like, okay, sure.
That happens.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's a lot of these that are just happened. December 2nd, 1964, a fire burned down the D. Maria II National Theatre in Lisbon, Portugal. And just for clarification, they were actually putting on a production of Macbeth at that time. It didn't just randomly hey, it's a random fire that happened. They actually were doing a scene. They weren't performing at the time when the fire burned the place down, but at the time they were putting on a production of Macbeth.
Okay.
In 1971, Roman Polanski produced a screen version that had a Duncan death scene so critically panned for being violent and gruesome that it was pulled from theaters.
I can believe that.
That one I feel like is not so much the curse, just Roman Polanski being Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I included that one, but I don't know if I believe that one. All right, are you ready for this one? This one's pretty impressive.
Go for it.
Get your notes out for this one. Okay, so in 1988, there was a Broadway production of Macbeth starring Glenda Jackson and Christopher Plummer. It went through, supposedly, 3 directors, 5 Macduffs, 6 full cast changes, 6 stage managers, 2 set designers, 2 lighting designers, 26 bouts of flu, torn ligaments, and numerous groin injuries. That's a lot of numbers.
That's yeah.
Now, your average production, your average production from start to finish may lose a cast member here or there, especially for like a long run show. Like Broadway productions, when they open, tend to have a new cast like a year or 2 in. Generally, people get burned out from doing all those performances of the same show, or they move to like the touring group or something. To go through 6 full cast members, 5 Macduffs, 6 stage managers, 2 set designers, 2 lighting designers, 26 bouts of flu, 3 directors, torn ligaments, and multiple groin injuries. That's a lot. That's a heck of a lot.
Especially for Broadway. Even Broadway. 3 directors, that's a heck of a lot.
So they might flip cast fairly regularly. They don't necessarily flip directors at all. Not that I know of. Stage managers might come and go depending on, kind of the burnout. Set designers, lighting designers, those, not so much, because once it's designed, you just need somebody to push the button. Like maybe board operators, but not so much the actual designers. But anyway, all right, we're almost done, and we're gonna run out of time before I can tell you how to break the curse.
Yeah.
All right, so 1998, the off-Broadway production starring Alec Baldwin, and Baldwin sliced open the hand of the actor playing Macduff while on stage. I feel like that was just an accident.
Yeah, because why don't you think that they would have better stage props?
You would think, but no. In 2013, Kenneth Branagh injured another actor in the opening fight scene. Kenneth Branagh likes doing Shakespeare.
Yes.
I just want to put that out. He is
a lot.
He has done every Shakespeare play in so many different versions that statistically he is going to stab somebody.
Yes.
It's just going to happen. So, like I said, I kind of picked and chose the ones where I could actually put names to incidents or, dates or things like that. But there are numerous stories of actors who have plummeted off the stage, theater companies who went out of business while putting on the play. And then there are so many productions that are actually just universally panned by critics, including ones that were put on by some pretty famous people, Kelsey Grammer, Lionel Barrymore, Laurence Olivier, just to name a few. But you could literally go, and there are websites that track just the Curse of Macbeth and all these kind of things, and you can track them back and try and figure out exactly how many there are. There are so many. So I picked the ones that I thought were either interesting, or I could actually find true sources for. So. I thought it was interesting. All right, so before we run out of time, let's break the curse.
Yes.
All right, so let me tell you. So other than actually putting the play on, how can you trigger the Curse of Macbeth? Do you know?
You quote the play, or you name the play. You should never say the name of the play
inside a theater. Yes.
Theater.
If you're not putting on the play, you should not say the word Macbeth in the theater. That's kind of the rule.
Or quote it.
Quoting seems to be kind of iffy. I think it depends.
I caught heck for it.
Well, yeah. Well, it kind of comes down to if you're doing the way I kind of understand it, and again, this is just opinion. Obviously, curses are subjective, but it kind of came down to if you're doing a performance or you're auditioning for a performance and you quote it, it's not as bad. But if you're just walking around the line, like just walking down the street going, out, damn spot, or double, toil and trouble, you might get in trouble for that.
You could. Easily.
But yeah.
I was on stage and getting ready to do another play and started quoting Macbeth.
So you decided.
And caught heck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we just don't say Macbeth, don't quote Macbeth, just leave Macbeth alone. Yes. Okay. So if you happen to make that oops, here's the generally accepted way to break it. Exit the theater, spin around 3 times, spit, preferably on the ground and not on a person. Curse, then knock on the theater door and ask for permission to be allowed back in. Do not re-enter the theater without being given permission.
Okay.
Yeah. So some kind of offshoots of that one, and again, that's like the generally accepted way to do it. There are some other variations that include you have to turn 3 times, you have to spit over your left shoulder. You can recite the line from one of Shakespeare's other plays, including Angels and Ministers of Grace Defend Us, which is from Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 4. If We Shadows Have Offended from Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 5, Scene 2. Fair Thoughts and Happy Hours Attend You from Merchant of Venice, Act 3, Scene 4, while leaving the theater. So that's kind of the thing is oh, crap, I said a bad word. God defend us. Send down the bard to protect me. So that's kind of the idea there. The other thing is, you have to spin around while brushing yourself off. I've seen people do that. It's kind of funny to watch people do that. Supposedly you have to say Macbeth 3 times, a little bit like Beetlejuice. So some production groups have actually insisted that an offender may not re-enter the theater until invited to do so, like I said. But they use that as kind of a way to punish people who've done it more than once by just leaving them out there. Like, you go sit in the loading dock. Just go sit.
Yeah.
Just what you do. Just go sit there.
Take your coffee break out there.
Just go sit in there. Remember, you're not allowed to eat or drink or smoke in your costume. So sit. Stay. Good dog. Yeah. I don't know. So what do we think? Curse or no curse?
Do I think it's cursed? No. I think that it allows people to believe it because, let's face it. If you look at theater, there are so many, quirks to it where, there's hauntings, there's folklore that you have to go through for different plays. Mm-hmm. I think it's just another one of those sort of things.
It is, I don't know. I mean, I've always done it as it's one of those things where in the theater, there are so many superstitions about everything. There's the ghost light that has to go out. There's the fact that you don't play on Mondays.
Right.
There's a lot of...
You don't give a standing ovation at a dress rehearsal.
Yep.
Yeah.
You never say good luck. Like, there's a lot of theater, I don't know, superstitions,
Folklore.
I guess. Yeah, folklore, traditions kind of thing. And I feel like this chalks into those, but I feel like statistically, if you probably compared this to any other show, I don't necessarily know that it would be that much higher in terms of, like, disasters surrounding it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like
it's had a long running.
That's what I mean. Like, the amount of times this production has been put on.
Yeah.
Compare that to, I don't know, pick another play by Shakespeare and say, okay, that Shakespeare play has been put on 100 times. Macbeth's been put on 200 times. So Macbeth has, 150 tragedies. Whereas, the other play only has 25 tragedies, so statistically it may seem a little bit more, but because it's been put on so many more times. That's why it seems so much more dramatic. At least,
and we talked about this. It's violent in itself.
Yes.
A lot of, outside of Henry V, I don't know a lot of fight scenes that Shakespeare did. But those were tremendous. As a matter of fact, there is rumor that King James saw it for the first time and wouldn't allow it to be produced again because it was so violent.
But he did it for you, man. He did it for you. All right.
But darn it.
All right.
Those Scottish kings are just
well, if you're going to have your king named, Macduff, I guess you're asking for it. I don't know.
Macduff was not king.
He wasn't, but he could have been.
He could have been, yeah.
That was one of the people that could have been.
Yeah.
I read my play. But anyway, all right, we are out of time. So thank you, Cece, for your inputs and your exciting. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little conversation and this little trip down statistical torture of people putting on Shakespeare productions.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to quote Shakespeare a couple of times, and I took it out. I'm like, oh, people are going to think this is English class. So I didn't go there. But
well, I could do it. So when shall we meet again? You're supposed to finish it.
Dude.
You don't remember it?
Nope. You're on your own.
In thunder, lightning, and rain? When the battle's nearly won, when the hurly-burly's done? Where to meet? Upon the heath, there to meet Macbeth?
I just didn't want to get cursed.
Now we're cursed.
No. You're cursed. Go outside and spit. All right. Well, while Cece goes outside and spits over her shoulder and does all that fun stuff, you guys take care. Dark Sun Rising is up next. As always, I'm Rebecca.
I'm Cece.
And we'll see you in the shadows.